riding one of my favourite roads back and forth on my Daytona.
Too close to the sun, 'cause you're gonna get burned.
Fits me quite well, this bike does, other than the foot pegs, which I still think are a little too high. I may lower them in the future if I decide that they're a problem, but nonetheless I am glad that I managed to get one of the 6 bikes that I was after. In the end I managed to whittle it down to 4. There was 4 big bikes on my list, and I am glad that I managed to get one of them. Admittedly, I would say we got lucky with this bike. This was the right bike, kind of at the right time, definitely at the right price, and I will make a separate video about this bike and its origins and how it came to be in my possession at another time. But yes, we did get a little bit lucky with this bike, although I will say that it isn't just a matter of luck. Part of it's luck and part of it's the fact that I made a list of what I wanted and I stuck to my guns. You know, I stuck to that list and it's paid off. And I never used to be that guy. I will be honest, I'll be honest with myself now. I never used to be the guy that decided what he wanted out of life. You know, I never used to hold myself as accountable as I do now and get what I wanted out of life. And then a couple of years back I started what you could refer to as a self-improvement journey, where I finally started to realise my value and what I was worth. And once I began that journey, I started to set standards for myself, you know, for what I want out of life, what I'm willing and prepared to accept, you know, what's okay and what's not okay. Maybe you're already on your own self-improvement journey, or maybe you're ready to start a self-improvement journey. Perhaps you're just ready to hold yourself accountable for your own decisions, or maybe you want decisions to be easier to make, because let's be honest, we can all occasionally procrastinate decisions because we expect certain decisions to be relatively easy to make until the decision comes around, and then we find actually it's not as easy to make as we thought it was. If any of these things sound like you, it's time to get yourself a blueprint. And I'm not talking about heading down to your local WH Smith's or whatever your nearest stationery store may be and buying something off the shelf. This isn't a document that you pick up off the shelf. It's not a document that you download from the internet. This is a plan, a model that you create for yourself for a specific situation. And because you're making this blueprint for yourself, it's very specific to your circumstances. For example, if you and I both made a blueprint for buying our next motorbike, my blueprint's going to be very different to yours. You know, our blueprints are going to include which bikes we're considering, which colours we're considering, how much we want to pay, the condition that it's in, how far we're willing to travel. These blueprints are very, very tailored and specific to the individual and the circumstance. When I was looking for my next big bike, I decided I wanted it to be a sports bike, or maybe the Street Triple. That was my wild card. But other than that, you know, that wild card, it was typically going to be a sports bike with that one exception. But it went into my blueprint. You know, I put this down on paper. It was going to be a sports bike or a Street Triple. and I really wanted either an undertail exhaust or one of those short little stubby exhausts that you get down the side of the bike. I didn't want a big leery exhaust up the side of the bike, and that's my own personal preference, you know. Colour wasn't really too fussed on colour, you know, especially when it came to the Daytona. I would have loved a red one, but I'd have loved a blue and white one. So I wasn't too precious on colour. But, you know, if I'd decided I wanted a specific colour, like I did with Rafiki, I'd put that in my blueprint. Or if I was open to all colours except maybe one, let's say I didn't want let's say I didn't want a black bike, put that on the blueprint. It's so specific to you as an individual. And then you've got the cost. How much are you willing to pay? How far are you willing to travel? You know, in the end, I got someone to pick this bike up for me. It kind of sounds a little bit lazy when I put it like that, but I got someone to pick this bike up for me. So again, how far are you willing to travel? You know, are you willing to send someone to pick the bike up for you? Because if you're willing to send someone to pick the bike up for you, then does it really matter how far away it is? Or maybe you want to see the bike in person yourself, you want to pick it up yourself, so you decide how far you're willing to travel, get it down on paper, put it in your phone, type it up, wherever you type it up, just get it on your blueprint. Because if you decide, for example, that you don't want to travel more than 100 miles to pick up a bike, and then you find a bike and it's the perfect bike, but it's 600 miles away, and then you start thinking to yourself, maybe I should consider this. No, you've already made the decision in advance of what you're prepared to do, how far you're willing to go and how much you're willing to pay. And then when that bike comes up that's 600 miles away, you've already made the decision. It's a hard no. Or maybe you've decided to give this romance thing another go. You know, you're going to give dating another try. Get yourself out there, meet yourself a nice woman or man or whatever you might be into. So you decided, yes, I'm going to put myself out there. You sign yourself up for Tinder or whatever you want to shoot your shot with. And now you've got to decide, what kind of person are you looking for? Age. Is it a problem for you? Do you have a minimum and a maximum? What's your age range? Yours will be different to mine, and yours will be different to the next guy or girl or whomever is making this blueprint. Age, height is a problem for some women, maybe for some men. You know, children, do you have them? Does she have them? Do you want them? Does she want them? Distance. Maybe you're willing to cast the net wide and you don't care about distance. You know, you'll travel hundreds of miles for the right girl, guy, whatever. So distance isn't a thing for you. But for the next person, maybe it is. Maybe you've decided all this traveling nonsense is, well, it's just nonsense. So you decide, I'm just going to date close to home. But be realistic. Be realistic when you're setting your blueprint, when you're putting all of these things down on paper or you're putting them into your phone. This is the blueprint that is going to hold you accountable, and it's going to help you make these decisions when the time comes. Because if you've decided, I'm only going to date close to home, you decide, I don't want to date more than 25 miles away from my house. That becomes part of your blueprint. No one can tell you that you're right or wrong, but it's going to hold you accountable. And then when you're scrolling and you come across the perfect profile, she's smoking hot and she ticks every single one of your boxes, but she's 66 miles away, and you're thinking to yourself, oh, you know, maybe I'll just compromise here, or, you know, maybe that traveling. No, she's 66 miles away and you set 25 on your blueprint. That's a hard left. Blueprints worked for you. So again, be realistic. It'll help and it'll stop you from procrastinating, but it will hold you accountable. Or maybe you find that you're working far too much. Now, of course, everything is relative in life, and as I said, everyone's situation is slightly different. Some of us work part-time, some of us work full-time, and some of us don't work at all. But let's say for a moment that you do work. and that you've decided, or rather you've worked out, that you're working too much. Let's say your work-life balance it's out of balance, and you've identified this. Now maybe you're employed, or maybe you're self-employed, and I know that for a lot of self-employed people, they're putting in the work, you know, they're putting in the grind, they're getting themselves to the next level, and that is an admirable thing to do. And again, no one can tell you that you're wrong, but you have to make sure at the same time that you're looking after yourself, and that you're factoring in some regular and reasonable breaks and time for yourself. You know, nobody wants to be working 70 hours a week, and before you know it, your life has passed you by. So if this is you and you have identified an imbalance in your work and life, again, it's time to set yourself a blueprint. You know, maybe you're working late quite often, maybe you're working weekends. Let's say that you're meant to work until 5 o'clock, but you're regularly working till 6, 7, 8, 9 o'clock. It's time to set your standards. It's time to decide what's okay and what's not okay. And let's say you decide, right, enough's enough, I'll put in the extra work when I need to. Now, I used to work for a board sports clothing company, which meant that 4 times a year our work, it peaked, you know, because we had season launches for spring, summer, autumn and winter. So the work would peak, and then after the launch things would start to slow down. So you'd put in the extra hours in the run up to launch, and then after the launch, when things were starting to settle down, starting to calm down, you could take a little time for yourself. But again, you've got to be realistic. If you're working too many hours, set yourself a blueprint. Let's say, for example, you decide, right, enough's enough, I'm not working after 7 o'clock, and I'm not working Saturday and Sunday. That's fine, that's on you, that's your blueprint. You're going to stick to it, and it's going to hold you accountable. And then you see, when you get that one piece of work that's almost done, and it's 5 o'clock, and you decide, I'm staying on to finish this piece of work, and before you know it, it's 7 o'clock, and you're thinking to yourself, oh man, I'm almost done, I'm so close to finishing this piece of work, maybe if I just stay like just beyond 7 o'clock, just a little bit. No, you've already set your blueprint, you were realistic with it, you decided that working after 7 o'clock was not okay. So if in doubt, you refer back to your blueprint, and the blueprint says no, but it's not really the blueprint that's saying no, it's you, because you decided long ago that working after 7 wasn't acceptable. And you see that piece of work that you've almost finished, I don't care if there's 5 days worth of work left there, I don't care if there's 5 minutes worth of work left there, it's 7 o'clock. That's the standards that you set for yourself. And you see that 5 minutes of work that needs doing, you can do that the next day. It's all about setting your standards and having the balls to stick to your guns. 'Cause you're gonna get